and plan training. I have Billy Thompson with me so that she'll be reviewing your questions, but we will probably wait until after we get through with the training session, print the questions, and send you all answers to that any of you may have. We're doing this a little differently in that we know that some of you want to use this for training your room supervisors. So what we're doing with this is we're starting with what you would use to train room supervisors, and we will go from there. If you don't have sound, please let us know, and we'll try to see what we can do. You hit it for me. Okay, so first of all, we actually, the Plan and Explore are so similar that we did send you a separate handout to give your room supervisors and proctors and anyone else working with the Plan program, and then a separate handout for Explore participants. Today, we're going to go over the Plan training handbook, and because there are so few differences that you will see in the actual training. But be sure that your room supervisors and proctors use the correct handbook. So to begin with, we want to just start with the little on page 2 after the table of contents. First of all, prior to testing, make sure that everyone involved in testing is familiar with the Plan Supervisor's Manual or the Explore Supervisor's Manual, whichever one is appropriate. It's a large document, but we can email a copy of the actual manual, because you will not receive your manuals until you receive your materials. So if you need them prior to that, we can email a copy of a PDF file of the manuals, but they're large documents, so just remember that. And ACT does require that a proctor be assigned to assist with a room supervisor who has more than 25 students. So if you have rooms with a larger number than 25, you will need to have a proctor for that room. Of course, as with any state assessment, no relative of a student who's taking the test may serve as a room supervisor or proctor for that student. And no student or student teacher, student intern may serve as a room supervisor or proctor. Those people are excellent, though, to have as hall monitors to assist you if students have to leave the room for any reason, or if you have room supervisors who need to contact the building test coordinator. So those are good training sessions for them. If you'll go to numbers 5, 6, and 7, just don't try to answer their question. Okay, I need to go down. Sorry, we're having a few technical difficulties here. Can you go to, yeah. Can you push? Okay. I'm sorry. We're trying to do this from our office rather than from the upstairs. When you go to options 5, 6, and 7, you'll see that prior to testing, your building test coordinator will need to determine whether the plan will be administered in a 1 or 2 day a 1 or 2 day administration. If you do choose the 2-day administration, the non-cognitive or non-academic parts must be administered first. A student may not take the non-cognitive or non-academic part after having completed the academic test. There is a short 5 to 10 minutes break allowed between test 2 and test 3 for students to stretch, and the only reason they may leave the room is to use the restroom. Okay, we need to mute Your building test coordinator will also need to determine how the presentations will be done in the room. Most of your students are going to have labels, but there are 3 options for presenting instructions, and those are listed for you in bullet number 7. And they're also listed in the plan book on pages 23 through 28 of the supervisor's manual. And these are the instructions that the room supervisor will actually read to the students as she's presenting or he's presenting the test. So the building test coordinator should determine this before testing before the day of testing. The pre-ID labels will be provided. As you know, iNow is often not as reliable as it should be, but our IT department here is pulling names of students from your schools with their demographic information as we speak, but there have been a few little problems, so all of your pre-ID labels may not be up to date as they should be at the time of testing. We still have a month until testing. But the pre-ID labels, if you do have them for students, should be placed on the answer folder prior to the actual test. The students will not place their pre-ID labels on the answer folders. And as we go on through this presentation, I think it will make more sense to you. We'll have a demonstration of what the pre-ID label is going to be like. In preparing the test room, as in the administration of all standardized tests, you must seat the students according to the seating chart. Students should not be allowed to select their own seats. And since the test booklets are not numbered, the room supervisor will record only students' names in the appropriate boxes on the seating chart. In most of our tests, there are booklet numbers, so the booklet number and the name is recorded on the seating chart. Try to seat left-handed students so that they're in a separate column at the right of the test room. Most of your left-handed students turn their test booklet, so just for test security, just seat your students so that you have the best seating available for all students. And of course, always, as in all tests, seats must be arranged so that all students face the room supervisor. If tables are used, students must be seated on the side of the table facing the test administrator. There can not be any students placed at the ends of the table facing each other. So it's when you use tables, generally the most students you can get at a table will be 2. And if you'll look at your supervisor's manual when you get it, page 8 of the supervisor's manual gives specific seating arrangements for a testing room. And we have provided a sample seating chart for you on page 10 of this training handbook. And of course, as you would in any test, just make sure that the writing surfaces are adequate. They're not crowded. There's good lighting, comfortable temperatures, and so forth. So just make sure that your test conditions are adequate. Make sure all instructional materials are covered in the testing room, and that would include bulletin boards and charts or posters that have to do with English, mathematics, reading, and science. Any charts and maps that provide strategies for solving problems are removed or covered prior to the test. Now, this you can leave geographical maps and periodic tables up on your walls. Those do not need to be covered. This particular part, the possession of prohibited items by testing staff, we can't stress enough how important it is for school personnel involved in the administration of state testing not use any digital devices, and those are listed for you, but any digital devices should not be used during testing. And violations may result in disciplinary action and certification revocation. Also, some of our LEAs have taken additional disciplinary action. In addition to other personal electronic devices, all electronic devices, including computers located in the testing room, must be turned off before testing materials are brought into the room, and they must remain off until all testing materials are removed from the room. And as in all testing, make sure copiers, scanners, printers, telephones, and other electronic devices have been disabled or removed from the room. The next section, security of test materials and test administration policies. Of course, you will use the same room supervisor's receipt and return plan testing materials or Explorer testing materials that you would use with most other standardized state testing programs. And the room supervisor must count and sign for all testing materials when they are issued for administration, and the building test coordinator must count and sign for all testing materials when they are returned immediately following test administration. And this is a required form in order to ensure the security of the test. So if someone monitors, make sure that that those forms are there and signed. Of course, you know, your test administrators, proctors, and ACT calls their test administrators room supervisors, so I will try to remember that as we go along. But no one should leave materials unattended at any time. And these booklets, test booklets, Plan as well as Explore, are copyrighted and cannot be photocopied, replicated, or used for any other purpose. And then no test booklet should be opened by any person other than the examinee on the test date. So that is very important. No test booklets or answer folders are needed for demonstration purposes. And as we get into reading accommodations, the test administrator will not need a student's booklet to do that either. Okay, the next section is approved materials to be provided for testing, and those are listed for you. I think they're all pretty clear. One thing that you don't always have to have for some tests, the graduation exam is not timed, so these are not necessary for the graduation exam, but for any state testing, you would need a reliable stopwatch or countdown timer, and if those are not available, a watch with a second hand may be used. Of course, the exact number of test booklets for the number of students present must be the only materials in the room. No extra materials, no extra test booklets or answer folders should be given to the room supervisor or proctor. The part of the materials will include answer folders with pre-ID labels attached if there are pre-ID labels for the students. Each student will have a copy of instructions for completing your answer folder, and these will be provided to you when the test booklets and answer folders are shipped to the system test coordinator. This one, a supply of soft lead No. 2 pencils, no ink or mechanical pencils with erasers for students who do not bring pencils. We have to have the soft lead No. 2 pencils with erasers, so they may not use mechanical pencils. You may provide plain, unused paper for students who need more space to figure problems on the mathematics test. That's the only section that will be allowed to use scratch paper. The next section, prohibited items for students. This one is very important, and it's the same policy that is used with each of our state testing programs. The possession of a digital device, including but not limited to cell phones, MP3 players, cameras, or other telecommunication devices capable of capturing or relaying information is strictly prohibited during the administration of a secure test. And it tells what school personnel will need to do, collect such devices before students can enter the testing room. However, if the student is observed in possession of a digital device during the administration of a secure test, the device must be confiscated. And then, of course, there are directions for what the room supervisor or proctor must do if a student is observed using a digital device. And these are, of course, confiscated, and the student will be dismissed from the testing room, and the student's test will be invalidated. However, no room supervisor or building test coordinator should invalidate a test without notifying the state. We need to be aware of any tests that are invalidated. Of course, again, students may bring number 2 pencils, not mechanical pencils, into the testing room. No highlighters, no pens, no mechanical pencils, rulers, or other devices are allowed in the testing room. Occasionally, we've gone to monitor and found that there have been students use highlighters, but those are not allowed on this test. And students will not allowed to bring calculator watches with timers or alarms, unapproved calculators, foreign language or other dictionaries, textbooks, backpacks, or other bags into the room. All they'll need to bring is a number 2 pencil and an approved calculator, and we'll go over that just a little in the next section. Okay, calculators are permitted for both the Plan and Explore test on the math test only. Students may not use calculators on the science section. Students may not actually use calculators for any other subject test. And allowable and prohibited calculators are described in the supervisor's manual, and of course, you're going to get these materials later. But if a student does not have a calculator, the math problems may be worked without the use of a calculator. So that would not be a reason to keep a student from testing. Testing staff will check calculators before testing to verify that they are permitted. And again, on page 9 of the supervisor's manual, there is a description of permitted and prohibited calculators. Testing staff will monitor students' use of their calculators to ensure that the students use the calculator only during the math test, use a backup calculator only after it's been checked by testing staff. They do not share a calculator, and they do not store test materials in the calculator's memory. Okay, and the last one, number 33, students will not be allowed to use the AHSGE calculators issued by the state, and that's very important. So do not allow those to leave the system test coordinator's secure storage except during the graduation exam. So students may not use the AHSGE calculators. Okay, admitting students to the testing room. Again, your building test coordinator will provide each room supervisor with a testing roster, and that room supervisor should admit students on his or her roster. The roster should match the test documents that have the students' labels or hand-completed demographic information. As students are admitted to the room supervisor should assign each student a seat. And then, again, we talked about seating left-handed students, but students should not be allowed to choose their own seats. And on the roster, please make sure that your room supervisors record the absences, both on the roster and the seating chart. Okay, encoding answer documents. Again, we talked about the instructions for completing your answer folder. The room supervisors will distribute copies of these documents when distributing individual answer folders. And included in this publication are specific directions for all non-cognitive or non-academic parts of the assessment. The non-academic sections include high school course grade information, as well as instructions for completing the needs assessment and the interest inventory. The non-academic sections of the plan are different than the non-academic sections of Explore. They're more detailed, and so the answer folder is a 4-page document rather than the 3-page document for Explore. Make sure that room supervisors are familiar with directions for coding answer folders on pages 12 and 13 of this training handbook. Okay, again, testing materials are distributed for the exact number of students. Okay, during the exam, so we'll start with number 40. During the exams, follow instructions in the supervisor's manual for distributing materials. Materials must be handed directly to the student. The room supervisor and proctor must ensure that each student receives his or her own test booklet and answer folder, because remember, you've already placed labels onto the answer folders, or the students have completed their demographic, or you have completed the demographic information for those students who did not have pre-ID labels. If you're testing within a 2-day period, the students need to get back their own answer folder that they had the day before when they start the academic part that they had the day before with the non-academic parts of the program. All directions for each subject test must be read verbatim from the supervisor's manual. And again, make sure that your room supervisors and proctors are familiar with that manual, and that they have read the instructions, and that they understand no matter how small the testing room, how few number of students are there, they must read those directions verbatim. The room supervisor nor the proctor may not answer questions regarding individual test items or questions about how to use a calculator. All that may be read to a student is the directions verbatim from the supervisor's manual. Specific questions about guessing are printed on the back cover of the student's test booklet. So if students ask about guessing, rather than trying to answer their questions, you must refer them to these instructions. Do not comment on or add in any way to the printed directions. The proctor, if in a room of more than 25 students, must walk around the room to assist students in completing demographic information. If there are 25 or fewer students and a proctor is not used, then the room supervisor should make an effort to walk around the room to assist with the demographic information. And again, at the beginning of the test, make sure each student is marking in the appropriate section of the answer folder. Okay, during the exam, continue, number 46, each planned test is timed, and room supervisors must follow the specified time and instructions that are given in the supervisor's manual. They shouldn't refer to any other instructions except those in the written instructions that the room supervisor must read from the supervisor's manual. For Explore, all the academic tests are 30 minutes, but in Plan, those are different. The English test is 30 minutes, the math test is 40, and then the others have, I think, 25 minutes. But just the teacher or room supervisor must read directly from the room supervisor's manual. This test does allow for an announcement of 5 minutes remaining that should be read directly from the room supervisor's directions, and it's very important that the students get this verbal announcement. They shouldn't post. The room supervisor should not make any other, additional announcements about time, but that 1 5-minute warning should be given for each test. Once you've started testing, or once the room supervisor has started testing, no student should be admitted to that testing room. So once time tests have begun, the building test coordinator will determine how makeup exams will be handled for these students, but they may not be admitted to the testing room once time testing has been begun for other students. Of course, with this test, students may write in their test booklets. If a student requests scratch paper for mathematics test, the room supervisor must furnish plain, unmarked paper, and then at the end of the test, all scratch paper, both unused and used, must be taken up before students are dismissed, and the room supervisor should account for each piece of scratch paper that is given out, so that there is no chance of test security violation. Okay. The next section is breaks. When the room supervisor gives students a short 5 to 10 minute break between tests 2 and 3, students may not leave the room except to use the restroom, and that's when a proctor in the room would escort any students who need to go to the restroom, or you may have hall monitors who are assigned to do that. Or, of course, you're encouraged the students to stretch at their desks, but they are not allowed to talk. The test booklets and answer folders must remain closed during any breaks. Students, during testing itself, not during the break, but during testing, students may be allowed to go to the restroom, but only one student may leave the testing room at a time, and that student must, unless accompanied by a proctor or hall monitor. When a student leaves the room during testing, collect the student's test booklet and answer folder from the student upon leaving, and return the materials when the student returns. Students who leave the room, Students who leave the room during the time portion of the test may not make up lost time. So you won't stop the timer and start it back. That does count as part of the time test for that student. And you would need to report those absences on a testing irregularity form so that if there are questions later, you have documented that irregularity. If there is no proctor in the room, room supervisors may not leave a testing room unsupervised at any time. So if there are no proctors in the room, make sure there is a trained alternate in the hall who can step in if there is an emergency and the room supervisor must leave the room. Testing irregularities. There are two for this or any of the ACT tests, but both Plan and Explore. ACT has a special irregularity form that needs to be sent back with the answer folders that are going to be scored, and that's located on page 73 of the Plan Supervisor's Manual and page 65 of the Explore Supervisor's Manual. But these would only be used if there was defective materials, the student challenges a test item, or there has been a mistiming that could not be corrected. So those are the only forms that the only reason these special form irregularity forms will be used and sent to ACT. If you need to, if a mistiming occurs, then of course you're going to need to contact us at the State Department. For test irregularities not included above, the room supervisors will use the standard irregularity report that's listed on page 9 of this training handbook. And it's the same one that is used for all other state-supported tests. In cases of unusual circumstances like a bomb threat, incidents of cheating, or any other unusual circumstance, the system test coordinator must notify the State Department immediately and submit an irregularity report to us after the incident. Make sure that the name of the school which the student currently attends is printed in the school name box, and complete an irregularity report for any irregularity that occurs during the test administration. I don't know why that's there again, but checking test booklets. Make sure that each student prints his or her name on the front of the test booklet, and this is important not only for accounting for materials at the end of testing, but the Explore and Plan are the only two tests that we administer through the State Department that allow the students to get their own test booklets back once they receive their score reports. So it's very important that that the student has written his or her name on the test booklet. Okay, checking answer folders of students with pre-ID labels. Pages 12 and 13 of this training handbook give specific details for coding the answer documents, but we'll go over that as we get to those descriptions of the answer documents. But when applicable, fill in the ovals for special status codes and for students who receive accommodations. When you're checking students for with no pre-ID labels, you'll again see the pages 12 and 13 of the training handbook for specific directions. and number 66 in this section gives you specific details of what should be completed from iNow, and the information should match what is in iNow. Okay, plan will, the test form used for plan will be form 32A, and the form for Explorer will be 05A, but that information will be in the Explorer handbook itself. Okay, go to the next. Okay, at the end of testing, we ask that you place the test booklets, that the room supervisor places the test booklets and answer documents folders in alphabetical order. And this is to assist the building test coordinator in making sure he or she has a test answer folder for every student, so that when we go back and the reports are sent, you do have documentation that there was an answer folder for every student. Also, the test booklets, the reason for asking that those be in alphabetical order is not for us, but you're going to need to distribute to the student his or her own test booklet once reports are received. So make sure that you place those in, sorry. Okay, make sure that you place those in an order so that it's easy to distribute those test booklets back to the students. Inventory, make sure that again, the room supervisor accounts for all scratch paper that was distributed to any students during the mathematics test, and that scratch paper should be shredded by the building test coordinator. Okay, and you will inventory and return all materials. Room supervisor will not retain anything in the room. Everything must be checked back in with using the room supervisor's receipt and return of planned testing materials to the building test coordinator. All right, that form is, this is a sample of the form that will be used, and everything that is received by the test administrator goes back after testing to the building test coordinator. Okay, and then the next document that we have for you is the standard irregularity form that will be used for anything that the building, anyone, whether it's the building test coordinator, the principal, the room supervisor, the proctor, a hall monitor, anyone who sees an irregularity is required to complete an irregularity form. Okay, the next page is a sample seating chart. If you have your own seating chart, that is no problem. We just wanted to make sure that you had a sample, and we included information that we want on that seating chart. So if you use another form of a seating chart, just make sure that all the information requested is recorded on your seating chart. Okay, the next page is directions for applying pre-ID labels to answer folder, and they give specific directions as to how they want that placed on the answer folder, including how you pull it from the sheet to keep it from curling. So if you would read those directions when placing those onto the answer folders, that would be helpful to you. If you'll look at that barcoded, If you'll look at that barcoded label, you will see that some of the information, and this is information that would have been pulled from iNow, some of the information that is inside that barcode will not be visible to you or to the student, and that would include such information as free and reduced lunch, special status codes, and that sort of thing. Okay. Okay, the next two pages are directions for coding answer folders, and if you will just make sure that those are reviewed for checking the answer folder, the specific directions that the test administrator or test room supervisor will read to the students will be located in the actual supervisor's manual, but this is just for a preliminary training. The next page is a sample answer folder. And for the plan, it's different than Explore, but for the plan, the only thing that students have to code for under school is the school name. On Explore, it does ask for the school name and address, and the address includes just the city and state of the school. But when you look at the two answer folders, you will see that they are different. The student who doesn't have the barcode will actually code his or her last name, first name, and middle initial, and that must be gridded. I would recommend that that's done prior to the administration of the test. And so directions for coding these answer documents are located in the actual room supervisor's manual. All right, if you look at page 2 of the answer document, there is the section for the interest inventory. The address that is listed on this page is for the student, and the student will only complete this information if we could go back to the previous page, page 1. If you'll scroll down, if you'll see section N has student information that the questions for the student to give the answer to that information will be located in the handbook of instructions for completing your answer book, the instructions for completing your answer folder that will be given to each student when the student is given the answer document. There is a section O that allows the student who wants the email address given to ACT and college services, that student can receive information. So if you want the students to allow that to happen, you can have them print their email addresses there. And this is where it's in section I. Would you like to receive information from the Education Opportunity Services? So the student would either record yes or no. And if the student records yes, then that student would enter either the email address or the home mailing address to receive that information. There's a needs assessment just as there is on Explore. And we have not provided any supplemental items. If you would like to do that, there is a section for supplemental items. The answer folder, page 3, is the section for the student to record his or her high school courses and grades. And this is a part that's important when we're giving a report back to the students. This is not included in the Explore non-academic sections, but it is included, and it's used for part of the predictor scores that are used, so that is something that students will need to complete. And then page 4 of the answer folder, this is where the plan form 32A will be completed, and the student will fill in the code for 32A. This, at the top of the page, on the right-hand side, is to be completed by school staff only after all testing has been complete, and the student will not receive his or her answer folder again. But you will follow directions in the manual specifically for students to complete their answer folder. This next page shows you that in a bigger form that we just talked about, that section of the answer sheet to be completed by school staff. The accommodations are on the left, and you have 10 of those. And if you mark 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, or 10, that makes the test for the student be non-standard. The VSC is for voiding, the E is for English, reading, math, or science. So you could either void all 4 or you could void one section. But again, nobody should void unless they have let us know first. The SDE approval is for anything to be marked in this section. On the right-hand side are the special status codes. You would fill that in for any student that it has special status. The only one that may not come up is the homebound, and we have a few who will be testing homebound. So that is the only one that will not be pulled from iNow. Okay. Now you would need to complete this if the student did not have a label. Okay, good. Next one. Okay, the next page relates to administering the test with Braille, large print, or recording accommodation. The Braille format is a rather large document, but the student may mark in the Braille document itself, or the student can answer orally if a scribe is part of the student's IEP. But if the Braille test has been marked by the student, then two certified personnel must transcribe responses to regular answer folders for scoring, and this would be done by two people who read Braille. The room supervisor must record the student's name and student ID on the front cover of the test booklet, and this test booklet will be packed with all other test booklets because this student will need his or her Braille booklet back when score reports are returned. But the non-cognitive components of the Explore and Plan are not provided in Braille, so these will have to be administered orally to the students. The large print format, if you will read that and make sure that your room supervisors understand that there is a little difference in the oral instructions because once the student completes the test on a large print answer document or large print worksheet, those answers must be transcribed by two certified individuals to a regular answer document or a standard answer folder for scoring. And the label for the student who's using a large print or Braille format test will go on the standard answer folder that will be returned to ACT for scoring. And you'll pack those. You won't pack those any differently than you will the others. They will be included with the regular answer folders. Recording accommodations. Students who qualify may have their responses recorded directly on the answer folder by a proctor. And if the answers are given orally, then of course these students must be tested in a separate testing. No more than one student may be in a room where answers are given orally. Okay, the next page has to do with specific directions for reading accommodations. And what we're going to do is do a short webinar. It's not going to be live. It will be recorded, but it will be for room supervisors who complete any kind of accommodated testing, and we will go over for those people, special ed coordinators or others, the directions that should be used when reading accommodations are provided. Teachers or room supervisors, whoever is giving this accommodation, must read directly from the reader's script. They will not need to use a student's test booklet. They must read exactly as written in the reader's script. And there will be some time so that the reader should be familiar with the information. And we will send you a sample 4-page reader script for both the Explore and the Plan when we send the copy of this webinar that will be used for training special ed teachers or others who give accommodations. Okay. When you have someone who's testing in a homebound setting, this requires two certified teachers or personnel must be certified. They will go to the homebound setting. They must check out materials on the day of the test. They must be sealed by the building test coordinator, or if they're checked out by the system test coordinator, they must be securely bound. They go to the student's home. No one may be present in the room while the test is being administered. And then, and whether it's the home or the hospital, wherever they have to go for this homebound setting, All materials must be secured before they leave and go back to check materials back in. Any answer folders that are used for homebound testing are again placed with all other answer folders for the student's school. Okay. All right, we're going to start now. The next part of this webinar is for everyone who is involved in testing, whether it's principals, building test coordinators, system test coordinators, central office staff, monitors. This information concerns other alerts. So your room supervisors will not be required to have a copy of this next section. Okay. The next section are the general alerts for the both Explore and Plan, and this is a combined document. And of course, I am your primary contact for Explore and Plan assessments, but any of us here at the State Department can answer your questions. And Billy has attended all the same meetings that I have attended, so she should be here if I'm not here. The administration dates or the window for testing is October 17th through the 24th, and all tests must be completed within that window. You cannot test before nor after the 24th. A few people have indicated they're testing on the last day, so for those people there will not be a makeup day because makeups must be administered during the regular window. And your Explore tests are administered to all your 8th graders, and your Plan will be administered to all 10th graders. Okay, on the general alerts again, number 4, these are the materials or the training materials that everyone will need. The Explore Supervisor's Manual, Grade 8, that's the manual that's provided by ACT and has specific instructions for administration. The Plan Supervisor's Manual for Grade 10, again, is provided by ACT and contains specific verbal instructions and for administering the test. The Explore Training Handbook for Room Supervisor and Proctor, or the Plan Training Handbook for Room Supervisor and Proctor, and we just went over the Plan Training Handbook. We're going to call those training handbooks throughout this document, but you would only, your room supervisors or building test coordinators will use the one that's appropriate for the grade testing that they are administering. And then, of course, this document that we're going over now is the Explore and Plan alerts for system and building test coordinators. And we're just, throughout this handbook, we're going to call it the alerts. Okay. Again, the pre-ID labels will be shipped separately from ACT to the System Test Coordinator. They are going to begin packing on October 5th. We're not sure when you will get them, but that is the anticipated shipping date that we have. They will also begin shipping other materials packaged by school that will be shipped directly to the System Test Coordinator. The special format, large print, reader script will be sent with the other standard print booklets and other information, but due to its size, the Braille will be sent in a separate package. So the System Test Coordinator should get one shipment of labels for each school, one shipment of test booklets, answer folders, and other documents for each school, and then a shipment of Braille if that is applicable. Okay. When school boxes are open, we ask that the System Test Coordinator go ahead, open the box, pull the pack and return slip, the traceable shipping labels, and the poly mailers that will be used for returning answer folders to be scored. This was a little confusing last year. We found out that ACT did include an extra shipping label in each box of materials, but you will not need to use that because ACT will actually place one of those labels on the poly mailer before they ship the materials to you. The building test coordinator will inventory all materials when they receive them from the system test coordinator to take to their schools. And again, don't forget that, and I'm constantly forgetting, but that in all of the ACT's manuals, the test administrator is referred to as the room supervisor, and the answer document is referred to as an answer folder. Okay. We talked about the information concerning students' possession and use of prohibited items during testing. Please make sure that everyone in the school is aware of those policies concerning prohibited items. That would include your hall monitors and anyone participating in testing that are not necessarily in the testing room. Again, I have written for you the same school personnel policies relating to school personnel and their use of digital devices. This is just reprinted from what was in the training handbook, so make sure that everyone is aware of these procedures. For the general alerts, the pre-ID label must be placed in the correct section of the answer folder, and we already talked about where that would go, and that it should be done prior to the actual testing. We discussed what you would need to make sure happens if a pre-ID label is not provided for a student's answer document or answer folder. And all verbal instructions for the non-cognitive student information section are located on pages 25 to 32 of the Explore Supervisor's Manual and pages 23 through 35 of the Plan Supervisor's Manual. And again, if you would like those earlier than the shipment from ACT, if you will notify me, I will send you an electronic copy of those manuals. Prior to testing, the building test coordinator will notify the system test coordinator and train all of her or his room supervisors and proctors on